Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Crime Time with Connie. I am obviously Connie, and hello. If you are new here, I sit down every week and I talk about a true crime case. If that is interesting to you, please hit the subscribe button. That way you can see my videos. So today's episode, I thought that since it's Friday the 13th, I thought I'd do a little episode about it and about a murder that occurred on Friday the 13th. This is episode 3 of my spooky season October episodes. My first one was about a satanic ritual murder, if you want to check that out. And then my second part was about a vampire murder. Like I said, if you want to check those episodes out, it's the two before this one. All right, so let's get started. Usually when I see Friday the 13th on our calendar, I get a little bit too excited. Most people don't like Friday the 13th because it's unlucky. The most popular reason why, it's based on the Last Supper of Jesus, and 13 people were present for that, and that occurred on a Thursday, and the next day Jesus was crucified the next day on Friday. So 13 and Friday makes Friday the 13th. People tend to avoid certain things on Friday the 13th, like superstitions like don't step on a crack, you might break your mama's back, black cats. I used to work at a hospital, and Friday the 13th, I swear to you, were bananas. It's true. It was crazy. I don't know what it is, but it's true. And a full moon. That shit is real when you work in a hospital. All the cuckoo puffs come out. Most people know that Taylor Swift's favorite number is 13. I'm not a Swiftie, and for some odd reason, I knew that she loves the number 13. Tattoo parlors give out $13 tattoos, which I did know about. Usually they have certain set designs that you could get a tattoo for just $13. It's very popular among the tattoo industry. And the most famous Friday the 13th reference is, of course, the movie Friday the 13th. I am a Michael girl. Michael Myers is my favorite, but Friday the 13th is my brother's favorite, so of course I've seen all of them. So with that, today we are going to talk about a murder that occurred on Friday the 13th. This is going to be a smaller case. It happened over 60 years ago, so I don't have a lot of information or background on these people. So I'm just going to give as much information I found. So, on May 13th, 1960, a woman named Victoria laid in bed with her husband, whose name was Marilyn, and Marilyn had fallen asleep, but Victoria stayed awake. Moments later, a man came out of their closet and shot Marilyn in the head with a .22 caliber. Marilyn was fatally shot and died. Victoria would not report her husband being shot because she was the one who planned this. The man that came out of the closet was named Francis Clayton, and he was 18 years old. Marilyn, the man who was shot, was 37, and his wife Victoria was 30. Victoria, who was 30, had a love affair with Clayton, the shooter. She wanted her husband dead. So I'm going to back this up a little bit. On April 7th, 1960, Victoria would meet the young man, Clayton, at her mother's home. She became very infatuated with Clayton, and Clayton would move into Victoria and Marilyn's house just 9 days later on April 16th. To get by with this, Victoria said that Clayton was the babysitter, but they actually had a love affair quickly. I would say that she fell harder for him, and Victoria would even open a joint bank account with Clayton and name it Mr. and Mrs. Francis. 7 days later, on April 23rd, so this is moving very quick. They met on April 7th, and now it's April 23rd. Clayton had to leave due to prior work commitments, and he actually worked on a farm. And Clayton was on this farm working from April 23rd until May 7th. So not that long. And while he was there, he would receive letters from Victoria saying that she was pregnant, that she was going to get an abortion if he doesn't come back, how they were meant to be. She would even go to this farm, his place of work, to ask for him to come back. She went there about 3 times, begging him to come with her so they could run away and live happily ever after. She would even call a lot. Now, Clayton did like Victoria, but I think Victoria wanted to get away from her family. She had 6 kids and a husband back home. The last time she went to go beg for Clayton to come with her, it succeeded. Clayton came back with Victoria and stayed in a hotel. And he stayed in that hotel for a few days, and then he returned to Victoria's home where her children were and where her husband was. He would stay in the family's closet when Marilyn returned home from work. So when Marilyn was away, Clayton came to play. Ever since Victoria met Clayton, she spoke a lot about how she wanted her husband dealt with, meaning that she wanted her husband dead. She was very unhappy in the relationship, and I think she wanted her husband just completely dead, gone, not a divorce, because this was 1960 and she was married before. When Victoria was younger, she was sent to Georgia to get married to a man she never met before. She met him the day she said, "I do." They would later divorce. And I think Victoria did not want another divorce, so she thought the only answer was for her husband to die. So on May 13th, Marilyn went to work and Clayton came out of his living quarters in the closet. Victoria and him spent the day together, and when Marilyn returned home, he ate, spent time with his 6 children, and went to bed. That's when Clayton came out of the closet and shot him with the gun. After Marilyn was obviously dead, Victoria and Clayton, they made love. They were intimate, and they were trying to figure out what to do with Marilyn. I don't know why they didn't think about what would happen after they shot him. Like, they had no plan in place. They were trying to figure out what their next move was. Clayton suggested just dumping his body by an outdoor theater. And then he suggested cutting up his body and burning it. And then they both came to the agreement of just calling the cops. And Victoria did. She called the cops the next morning, which means Marilyn was in that bed, dead, all night. Victoria would change her story 3 times to the police. 2 times that morning she reported him dead, and then one final time 10 days later when she was in custody, she told police that he, as in Marilyn, her husband, would beat her. She was afraid of him. He was an alcoholic, and that someone just came into the home and shot him. But then she said that Clayton was the shooter, and she went along with the plan because she feared for her children's life. She alleged that Clayton was going to cut one of her children's ear off if she didn't go with the plan of killing her husband and running off together, selling her furniture for money so they could run off. But police did not buy this. Obviously, they figured out that Clayton and Victoria were in a love affair, that Victoria was the mastermind behind it, and she somehow manipulated this 18-year-old kid man into killing her husband. Eventually, they both went to trial, Victoria and Clayton, and Victoria's trial was first. Her defense was that someone just came into the home and shot her husband. But obviously, with all the evidence of the affair, on January 13th, 1961, she was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Before this, she tried to plead insanity, but she had all the tests done. She was not declared insane. Next was Clayton's trial, and on September 5th, 1962, he was declared insane and was committed to a Central State institution, found not guilty by reason of insanity, and he would spend the rest of his life in a mental institution. Obviously, I don't have all the files on this case. It was hard to find information about it, but I don't know why he was declared insane. Obviously, you have to go through a lot of testing with the state, but he was found insane. And that is the murder that occurred on Friday the 13th, May 13th of 1960. A twisted love affair about a wife who just wanted her husband dead. But that is it for today. I know it was a short one, but usually my videos come out on Wednesday and today's Friday, so I thought I'd do a little video for you today. Join me next week where I talk about a unsolved murder case. But I hope to see you guys soon. Stay safe and stay golden.